Back for another installment of Ask the AD, and for the second straight version, actually third straight version, no Ask the AD questions will be asked from the fans.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to those. But this is, in some respects, about the fans, because this is something that has been asked about, queried about, emailed about, tweeted about for a very, very long time, and it's finally here, the master facility plan.
You know, we're looking forward to it, but the reason it's taken so long is it is a lengthy process. And from the time we hired HOK out of Kansas City, they did a wonderful job. There was a lot of interviews, there was a lot of discussions, there was back and forth. You know, they give us some ideas, we'd have to say, well, no, we don't like that, this isn't going to work. So it does take a long time, and actually, they would probably tell you we were able to turn this around faster than most facility master plans that they typically do. Most of them are usually 12 to 18 months. We've been able to do this in well, since January.
Well, let's get into the details of this in some respects, and it almost feels like we should start with the disclaimer here at the outset, because the good and the bad of a facility plan, right, is that you reveal some stuff and people can really get excited, the juices start flowing, everyone's like, wow, that's cool, it's great, let's build it now, and all that. But the bad part is everyone wants to hold you to it for the next decade and a half of, right, well, this is what you said you're doing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I guess out of the outset, this isn't a plan that's set in stone today and is the map for the future here.
You know, it is and it isn't. It is in a way that it says these are our needs. And again, we go back to how the process started, as we sat down with each coach and a lot of our department heads and said, okay, what do you need for your program to be successful? But as you mentioned, it's really a 5 to 10, even 15-year plan. And as we all know, a lot can change with that and what direction where we might go. So what you see today may not be the actual physical layout in 10 years from now. You know, some of the early stuff, if we get started on some of these projects, probably will look very close to what they do, but there are some pieces of this that we may not get to for several years. So you're right, it is a vision, and that's what it is. It's a vision of our future needs and our facility needs, but it doesn't mean it's going to look exactly like that, 5, 10 years from now.
Now, while everybody at K-State Athletics, or at least you on the staff that is intimately involved in the plan, have a little bit more thorough process and vetted and plans of each project, those are not out there right now, as those will be released as we get to each of those projects when they come up, right? Right,
because what everybody will see is an overview of what it's going to look like in terms of where things might be. Once we decide which projects will become a priority and we're going to go out and say, okay, we're going to start fundraising or a capital campaign for this project, then that's when the details will come out. They're very general, and a lot of, we won't show any more detail until we decide this is going to be our priority. Now there's a big number attached to this. People are going to see a big number of what that overall project plan is going to be, but that doesn't mean we're launching a capital campaign for that number. We'll break them down based on donor interest, needs, and then just really where the next piece is going to be.
You talked a little bit about the process here of talking with coaches and staff about what their needs were and what works for their department, their sport, that sort of thing. It's interesting, we're in this room talking about the strategic plan, and if you look at those sort of tentpole themes that came out of that, you seem to have kind of hit those high notes here with this. Is that intentional? Did you go back and apply those principles, I suppose?
It's funny. It's a great question. It kind of happened simultaneously because we were still working on the strategic plan when we were doing the master plan. But in my mind, as I met with donors and coaches as I went through my process a year ago, facilities were very much a part of those conversations. From the donor's perspective, they were saying to me, we need to keep moving forward, right? They've seen the impact of our great facilities that we have had. Coaches have said, well, Gene, it's great, we've got a lot of great facilities, but some of the coaches that haven't had upgrades were very clear to me to say, here's some of our needs. And that's where so from my initial meetings, that's where the idea to start the master plan was, as I felt we had a need to start looking at what our future. So they are tied together, but it just kind of happened, at the same time.
Right. Student athlete welfare, chasing
right.
championships, fan experience, elevating the brand, all those
yeah.
sort of things, and even managing the fiscal sort of side of things, right?
Absolutely, because as I mentioned, we're not just going to run out and launch I think the price tag is $230 million. We're not going to do that. We're going to figure out what's our priorities, take those one piece at a time. Some might be tied together, and some projects will come a few years down the road. But we have to be able to pay for it. We have to be able to fundraise for it, and we need to make those decisions as we move forward.
All right, so speaking of that as with the strategic plan, something has to be listed first when you start going through the deal, right, and just revealing it to the public. And when they look at that map, inevitably people are going to draw some conclusions as to what's first.
Right.
Is there a list, so to speak?
There's not a list that we're ready to put out there. If you were to see some ideas, I mean, yeah, do we need to address volleyball with Ahern and where that's going to improve? Absolutely, that needs to be addressed. We need to address our indoor track facility. Obviously, we did a big upgrade outdoor this year. Clearly, there's some talk about the south end zone and upgrading that. So have we decided which piece is going to be first? We haven't. But again, that'll be driven a lot by donor interest and just where we think we can raise the money to make those projects happen. And as we go out and begin to share this with our donors, we'll talk about what we think we would like to see happen first. But again, it's all going to be based on their interest from a philanthropic side of things.
Right. This is not something you're gonna go borrow money and.
Right. We're going to have to, as you go back to your point about being fiscally responsible, we don't have a lot of opportunities, but we to get deep into debt, and we don't want to do that. It's not the fiscally responsible thing to do. But we got to figure out how much do we need to fundraise? Is there an opportunity to bond? Can we finance it? So those are some really key pieces that we'll have to talk about as we move forward with this plan.
And moving forward, that sounds like it's the next step, is kind of exploration of the donors and really where you want and where the interest lies.
Yeah, that's what we'll start next, is once this is out, is we'll start having individual conversations with either donors that have expressed interest of some of the projects, or people that we'd like to have an opportunity to share the vision with them and see what kind of interest. Some will be just, what do you think of our plan? And so once we start doing that, we'll get an idea as to which areas or which projects we think we can go out and move on pretty quickly and raise the money for.
Thanks for the time today. And this has been, I know, something that people have really wanted to see for a very long time.
Yes, it has.
It's the fun part, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. And I know they'll have questions, and I'm fine if they, to reach out to me, and I'll try to answer those questions as best I can.
And we promise we'll answer questions from you, the fans, on the next Ask the AD. In the meantime, Gene will be available through email, calls, Twitter, whatever else. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
Gene Taylor joining us for another Ask the AD segment. For more information on the Master Facility Plan, be sure to check out KStateSports.com and go to AhernFund.com for more info on how to get involved. For Gene, I'm Brian. Thanks for watching.